The year is 2003, and I'm 13 years old on a date with a girl at the movies, unfortunately watching the film Daredevil. And although I got to hear not one, but two songs from Evanescence in that movie, I think, if I remember correctly, unfortunately there was no second date. Welcome to Not Every Single. I'm Joe.
And I'm Stephanie.
Today we're going way back to an album that's 20 years old now.
Yeah, we're kind of hoping to do that a bit more, get some big anniversary albums. So this one just happened to pop up on our radar. I had this album. I listened to it in my car a lot.
Yeah.
And tried to sing along to it.
Sounds difficult.
Yeah, she's got quite the range.
Definitely has a huge range. I thought I had this album, but now thinking back, I think I had this thinner CD case sampler thing that was just the singles for some reason.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was weird. Bring Me to Life, maybe a different mix of My Immortal, like the full band mix maybe, and Going Under.
Yeah, those are the three singles. I feel like I didn't hear Going Under on the radio that much. The other two for sure.
Yeah, the other two were just undeniably massive hits. Going Under, yeah, I heard it a bit, and it was on that sampler I had, but yeah, I never heard the full record, really. I had that little sampler thing. I thought it was good. For some reason, I never got the album. I never got the second album, so I never really, went on with this band and experienced their discography. I've just sort of known they've been going the whole time. What about you?
Yeah, I only had this album. I think I felt a little uncool for having it.
Right.
I don't know why.
Yeah, I mean,
there was this perception, we talked about it with Avril Lavigne a bit.
We've talked about it with Avril Lavigne. We talked about it in the My Chemical Romance video. But, there was this thing back then where certain bands weren't cool to like or whatever. I'm thrilled that that's not really a thing anymore because it was super lame. It was I probably would have been into some of these bands more, but you had to be careful, what's in your CD book, what's going to be seen in your CD book.
Yeah, because that was the thing, is you had a book in your car with all your CDs, and then your friend would get in your car with you, and they'd pick a CD, and if you had a lame CD, then they might make fun of you, or you might not feel cool. But if you had something they didn't even know about that was really awesome, then you got points.
Yeah, as the friend grabs the CD case and I'm looking over that Key and Peele sketch with the sweat coming down. You feel like you're being judged on your whole personality almost.
Yeah.
And so then I would have weird stuff oh man, I have cool stuff like Otekra. I don't even like Otekra.
Yeah.
I don't listen to Otekra. I just felt like it had to be in there.
I don't even know if that's how you pronounce that band's name.
Otekra?
Oh, something like that.
It might be.
I don't know either.
I just knew Radiohead liked them, so it's
right.
I guess I like them too.
Yeah.
Anyway, back to Evanescence. Now, we're not going to go over the history too much or whatever. There's a lot of videos like that out there. I'd recommend Trash Theory's video. But just diving in and listening today for the first time in 20 years, a lot stood out.
Really? Yeah.
It's some stuff sounds dated, and that's mostly production technique.
Yeah, I had similar thoughts where I was listening, and at first especially I was thinking, dang, I feel like the album starts really amazing. It comes in, it started, and I was like, this is a great opening track and a great intro to the opening track.
Yeah.
And you've got some really, really awesome songs. There's a little bit of production stuff I wouldn't necessarily say is my favorite. And then as the album goes on, it starts to feel a little more repetitive and a little more dated. But the songwriting is still just as good.
That's the standout here. I mean, that's the undeniable thing about this album, and I'm going to assume the rest of their discography is this strong composition, brilliant melodies and hooks,
right? Where
you can sort of do these songs any way, and they would sound good because they're just written well.
I know. I kind of wish, I wish there was some variety in the production for sure. I actually looked up a little. This guy who produced it had just done a few things with their record label before he started his own studio, and he did a few things. And this was his first thing that was like huge.
Wow.
And so he was not super experienced in working with big bands, and nor were they a big band when he produced this album.
Right.
So I don't know if I'm curious what it would have been like in the hands of someone else. And I think there bear some hallmarks of inexperience possibly on the production, though there are some also really, really cool production things.
Yeah, it definitely has that thing of the time that you'd hear in like, say, another album that turns 20 that we might talk about soon, Meteora by Linkin Park. This sort of like glitchy thing where things are like stuttering, and it's kind of it sounds cool, but it instantly makes me think of that time and those records. And so it has a bit of that. My real issue came with being really fatigued by the guitar tone that never seemed to change.
I was going to say that. I wrote that down.
Yeah.
It's the same. It's like chugga chugga guitar a lot.
Yeah.
And because the writing, I really felt that Amy Lee's writing, I think they co-wrote stuff, but as far as the melodies and the choruses, there's different things happening. Like it's not all the same type of song, same type of chorus. Things are a little off kilter. If you really listen, some of the phrasing she does is kind of weird in certain songs. And I just really wish the guitar work was up to that level.
Yeah, they stay in that drop tuning, that genre has that. And, I don't know too much about this genre, so like correct me if I'm wrong. I'm kind of going out on a limb saying this, but like I sort of feel like in that genre it's maybe like taboo to vary it too much and do like weird stuff on guitar. You kind of got to stick to that like low deep
just
riffage.
Heavy, yeah.
And that's unfortunate because exactly it could really elevate what's already an amazing composition.
Yeah.
But with this long of a record, like by the back half, I'm just like, I'm so sick of hearing the like, jung, jung, jung.
I know I'll be like, oh, this chorus is neat. And then, and the guitar comes in. And there's some really cool piano stuff. Hello and My Immortal, both heavy piano work, which I thought was much more interesting than the guitar stuff. There's a bit the other thing here, which I think is also kind of common in the genre, is like the overuse of strings.
Yeah, what was interesting is in Bring Me to Life, I forgot there was that much string
A
work.
lot, yeah.
And I liked it there, but I think it's because it's like the second song.
Yeah, yeah. And I've said this, on and off, but like I'm not a big fan of strings in general unless it's really interesting and like necessary. I feel like a lot of times it's sort of a cheat way to like make something feel epic. Yeah. And in in Bring Me to Life, it's that song seems to call for it, in my opinion, but some of the other ones not so much.
Yeah, it weirdly In Rainbows comes to mind by Radiohead.
Yeah, yeah.
You wouldn't think that there's so much strings all over that album, but with the exception of like 15 Step and Body Snatchers, it's like on almost every song.
Yeah.
Well, but it's necessary, it blends right in, elevates.
Well, they're being innovative with it, whereas, a lot of producers will do is just do like, it's going to swell. Right. The strings are going to swell, and then it's going to feel big. And
maybe some of that also had to do with Amy Lee's interest in like film scoring.
Oh,
and, like,
yeah.
making something sound epic. So I get why it's there, and it also kind of fits that genre too.
Yeah.
But it's that and the guitar tone, if it just had a little more variation and was a little less samey all throughout.
Yeah, it was bumming me out a little bit how good the songs were and how the production just didn't always serve it the way it should have.
But vocally, I mean, it's so impressive.
I have to say too, like, I kind of wish there was some like maybe at least one like really weird out of left field like kind of vocal performance on this album, but she is extremely talented and she is not resting on it either. She is doing things with the voice. She's using dynamics. She's using, chest voice, head voice, mixed voice, all very well. Bringing in little, just little pieces of flair or whatever to her voice here and there.
How many pieces of flair?
Yeah, you have to have at least 5, right? So it's not like she's just giving a flat, strictly operatic performance, but I just get like, I want someone to do something weird all the time.
Yeah. It makes me wonder if further along in their discography, does it get more creative and weird with like guitar and vocal effects maybe?
Especially because the guitarist left.
Right, after this. Actually, in the middle of the tour.
In the middle of their tour. We were just watching that video.
Jeez.
Like, so, yeah. And I can't really fault any of the vocal performance. This is just kind of a subjective thing for me. And I'm not saying in any way that I don't like it. It's super impressive. And
with their, the situation with their label pushing for a rapper and all that stuff, maybe there was an element of like, don't rock the boat. Yeah,
like because they already left one label.
Yeah, they had like a deal fall through and they said, no, we're not going to have a rapper in the band. Then, they kind of compromise with, okay, well, there's going to be this guy on Bring Me to Life since that's the single. And yeah, maybe she felt like we can't get too weird because don't rock the boat on this one.
So they didn't like stand their ground for artistic integrity, obviously, with not having a rapper on the whole album. So I guess given what it could have been.
Can you imagine? Can you imagine if they gave in and you had like a Mike Shinoda
just for
type?
this first album, I guess we'll do it or whatever.
Yeah. Can you imagine every song having someone like that come in and be like, I'm going to rap a little here.
Yeah.
Like repeating chorus lines, like, that'd be rough.
It's so condescending to Amy as a performer, and she really was trailblazing there, being a female vocalist and songwriter in a band like this.
Oh yeah. I mean, that was unheard of back then, as far as bands that were this big and mainstream and entering into that genre where you're lumped in with people like Linkin Park and Deftones and all male groups.
Yeah. Well, and the label had previously put out Creed's, I think, first album.
Right.
So then, it's like, it's very like dude, like that deep voice. And like, I feel like Creed is kind of actually really similar to Evanescence in some ways as far as like, just like epicness and like, I don't know, just the kinds of people who would like, even though I don't like Creed, I like Evanescence, but those fan bases would really cross over, especially at the time.
Yeah, you wouldn't think, but given like what do you call those graphs?
Venn diagram.
Given a Venn
circle.
diagram, there's probably actually some crossover audience, so it makes sense that they were on that label. I have to say something about the song Hello.
Yeah.
Too sad.
Too sad.
It's too sad.
This is like emo. Like
I don't want to be that sad. Like My Immortal I could handle. Like it starts and I'm like, oh man, it's sad.
Yeah.
But like that one, I was sort of blindsided by. It's like the reason I don't. This is just me. I am not critiquing the song at all. This is just my weird
this is
thing.
Funny.
So like it's the reason I don't watch movies like Blue Valentine or like stuff like that where they're like screaming and crying the whole movie. It's
everyone
like
being mad and sad.
Like I don't want to be sad. That's the last thing I want to be is sad. So this song comes on, I'm like, too sad.
But like it's pretty sad. It's like not unlike, Blue Valentine, which is just miserable. This is like, sometimes it's just cathartic. You just need to work out that
a yearning kind of sad.
Yeah, and it's I don't know. I love that song. I think it could have been as big as Immortal. It's sort of I think a toss up which one they could have chosen for the single.
Speaking of choices, it seemed like a difficult choice between which My Immortal to put on.
Yeah.
If you pull it up on Spotify, My Immortal parenthetical full band is shoved at the bottom as sort of a bonus track. I feel like on one hand, that version sort of locks it into the rest of the record, and the band doesn't come in until like the last chorus anyway.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, the original version is just kind of so iconic at this point.
I think I prefer the original. I don't need the band coming in to tell me how to feel, you know? It's just, to me, it's unnecessary.
It could maybe help.
I think live it would probably be nice.
It could maybe help like win over some like some more like dude fans back then that like would only like it if it had the rock at the end, you know?
You know what? I actually made this note. I forgot that My Immortal, her vocal performance is so Sarah McLachlan. And you don't have a lot of reference for her as a singer. I had like her live album for some reason. I think I've mentioned that before.
Okay.
And I was like, oh my gosh, it's so similar. I don't know if that was an influence of hers at all. It seemed like she was into like Tori Amos and some weird stuff. So I guess that could have been.
It could have been.
She's Sarah McLachlan and Tori Amos again with the Venn diagram. Like there's a lot of crossover.
Yeah.
I mean, she makes it her own, but it just like occurred to me.
It kind of seems like that's sort of the secret to their success is, okay, that's twice now we've been like, oh, there's actually probably some similar fan base. Now you think about like Smashing Pumpkins, Nine Inch Nails sort of world.
Right.
And you're probably getting a bunch of fans from that world as well. There's just like a lot of different kinds of musical genres where you can be also into Evanescence. And that's probably why it blew up. Yeah.
And there's a lot of like really current references that you can draw the line from this to that. Certainly Willow, Poppy, Demi.
Yeah.
Like all this sort of heavy, pretty type of stuff. And they kind of take it to another level, those artists, by like really adding more like screamo type of influence or nu metal type influence.
Yeah.
Which could have been cool.
I was actually going to say that, knowing that Amy Lee had this influence of like Nine Inch Nails, Smashing Pumpkins in the mid 90s, like kind of makes me think that Fallen should maybe have one really glorious scream on it.
Yeah.
You know?
Or
so just a throat shredding scream. Because I know they at one point would do Zero live.
Oh yeah.
A cover of the Smashing Pumpkins song Zero, and she would really get, a little screamy with it.
Yeah, that's I guess what I meant earlier in the video by like just something else, something weird, something different.
Yeah.
Is like really, because I think she's such a technical singer, and she doesn't have the disadvantage of some technical singers that are less able to bring in emotion and like individuality. But I wonder if that keeps her somewhat from wanting to rough up her voice in that way.
Sure. Yeah, I could see that.
Or
just one good one in the studio.
I think you have a really good point about like, though, that the studio or the label may have been too afraid to let them do something like that.
It seemed like a precarious situation from what I read and what we watched, and that they maybe had to just play it safe and not get too experimental. So I'm interested if maybe the second album goes in a different direction. Is it more of the same? Should we check it out? Let us know what you think. What's your favorite song on Fallen? Mine was, I kind of like the opener. I know that's maybe a little weak since it was one of the singles.
No,
but I had forgotten about that song.
I think so too. I think that was the one that I was like, dang, this is cool. Like, they're a cool band. This is a cool song.
And it made me think of acts now like Poppy and Willow, like could totally do that song.
Yeah, I think that had the most like sort of oh gosh, I forget the word I'm thinking of. Potential, I guess, or for something weirder and cooler they could have done, but still very cool.
And thank God there wasn't a rapper on it. So should we check out the follow-up? I don't even know what the second record's called. Is it good? Do you want us to listen to it? Do you want to hear our thoughts? Let us know. Thanks for watching. This is Not Every Single. I'm Joe.
And I'm Stephanie.
See you next time.
Bye.
Bake me up a pie. I could get into that.